Welcome to video lesson number 8. Today we'll be doing converting decimals to fractions. And this is the last unit of last lesson of our second unit. For this lesson, you will need the notes you were given in class, TOC number 8, a pencil or pen to take notes, a highlighter marker or colored pencil just to highlight some key words. And remember, this is part of the non-calculator section, so put those calculators away. So let's get started. For you to convert decimals to fractions, it's very simple. All you're going to do is read the decimal using place value and then write it as a fraction. The decimals, just so you know, that have a whole number in front will end up as a mixed number. And the last thing you have to remember is not to forget to simplify. So let's review place value. We have this example, 564.739, and we know that if we put the 5 in the hundreds place, the 6 will go in the tens place, the 4 will go in the ones place, we'll put the decimal after the 4, the 7 is in the tenths place, the 3 is in the hundredths place, and the 9 is in the thousandths place. Now, to convert it into a fraction, we are going to say it 564 and 739 thousandths. You don't have to write all of that on your paper, but you do need to know how to say it, because if you can say it with place value, then you can write it. Once you've said it, 564 and 739 thousandths, you can just take the 739, put it in your numerator, and because it's in the thousandths place, you put 1,000 on the bottom. Then you would simplify it, but this is one that can't be simplified. Don't forget to write this little saying down in your notes. Say it, write it, simplify it. Say it, write it, simplify it. Or you can put a little rap to it. Say it, write it, simplify it. Say it, write it, simplify it. It'll help you remember how to convert a decimal to a fraction. So let's look at some examples. First step, say it. We have 37 hundredths. Then we're going to write it, 37 over 100. Then for this one, we can't simplify. Let's look at the next one. Say it, 4 tenths. Write it, 4 over 10. This one I can simplify. I'm going to divide both by 2, and I end up with 2/5. And that's my answer. Looking at two more examples. First step is to say it. 3 and 25 hundredths is how I would say it. The 3 would go out front when I write it. The 25 goes over 100, and then I need to simplify. If you remember 25 cents out of $1, this is one of those frequent fractions, or you can divide by 25. If I divide by a quarter, I would end up with 3 1/4. You can also start by dividing by 5 and just keep dividing by 5 until you can't anymore. Or if you recognize that that looks like money, 25 cents out of $1, you'll recognize that that's 1 out of the 4 quarters. Let's look at our last example. Again, we're going to say it, and that would be 24 thousandths because our last digit ends in the thousandths place. Then we're going to write it, 24 over 1,000, and then we're going to simplify. We can simplify by dividing both of these by 8, and we end up with 3 over 125, and that can't be simplified anymore. If you don't recognize what number is the greatest common factor to simplify by, you can always start, if they're both even, start with number 2. Divide both in half, because that's what dividing by 2 is, and you would end up doing multiple divisions. But if that's easier for you because you don't know your math facts, start there. So let's look at this again. Say it, write it, simplify it. Try these on your own. Pause the video, see if you can do it, and then restart the video and see what your answers are. So first I'm going to say this example. We have 7/10, so I'm going to write 7/10. I cannot simplify that. For number 2, I'm going to say it first, 14/100, then write it as a fraction, 14 over 100, and then simplify it by dividing both by 2. And I end up with 7 over 50. Last example, or number 3, I have, say it, 17 and 35/100. The 17 is going to go out front, 35 is going to go over 100, and then I'm going to divide both by 5 to simplify, and I end up with 7 and 7/20. Sorry, 17 and 7/20. Good job. Let's keep going. Again, remember, say it, write it, simplify it. For number 4, we're going to have 999 thousandths. So we're going to put that over 1,000, and we cannot simplify that, so it's as low as it can go. For number 5, we have 15/100, so we're going to write 15 over 100 and then simplify by dividing by 5. If I divide both by 5, I end up with 3 over 20. And the last example is simply 3 ones or 3 wholes. I don't have to write that as a fraction. It is just 3. Keep focused. You got this. Repeating decimals, or the ones like the problems on the back of your page, are a special case. Because they don't ever stop, they go on forever. So you can't say they end in the 10th place or they end in the 1000th place. So we have to treat them differently. So give me your full undivided attention. And this example on the left is what you would know if you see that bar notation over the top of the numbers. Those are your repeating decimals. When you are given a repeating decimal and you're trying to turn it into a fraction, you need to write the repeating decimal over a 9 for every digit after the decimal. So in the example up above, you would write 99 over 99. And then don't forget to simplify. If I look at that example, it'd be 99 over 99, which would simplify to 1 whole. Bad example, but you get the idea. Let's look at some practice. So in question number A, or letter A, we have 3 repeating, 0.3 repeating, which means we take that 3 and we're going to write it over a 9. There's only 1 3 written, so we write 1 9, and then we need to simplify. We can divide both the 3 and the 9 by 3, and we would end up with 1/3. That's how we get 1/3 equals 0.33333, which is one of those fractions you should have memorized. Letter B, we have 36 repeating, 0.36 repeating. So we're going to write 36 over 99, and again we need to simplify. With most of these, you're either going to be simplifying by 3 or by 9. So let's divide both of these, because 36 and 99 can both be divided by 9. You would end up with 4/11. And then for the last example, we have 123 repeating. So we're going to write 123 over 999. And this can be simplified by dividing by 3. When I divide them both by 3, I end up with 41 over 333. Let's look at the ones at the bottom of the page. So for number 1, if you want to try these on your own because you feel you understand it, it's pretty easy. Remember, you're just putting the digits behind the decimal on the numerator, and then adding a 9 for every digit that is behind the decimal. So if there's 1 digit, you add 1 9. If there's 2 digits, you add 2 9s. If there's 3 digits, you add 3 9s. And not a lot of these will simplify, so that should make your job a little bit easier. So let's look. If you want, pause the video and come back. Otherwise, if you want more instruction, just pay attention. For number 1, we have an 8 that's repeating, so the 8 goes in the numerator, and there's 1 digit, so there's 1 9. You can't simplify. For number 2, we have 0.4 repeating. Again, the 4 goes in the numerator, and we have 1 digit, so it just goes over 1 9. And again, you cannot simplify. For number 3, we have 16 repeating, which means it'd go 1 6 1 6 1 6 1 6. So since there's 2 digits, we put 16 in the numerator and 99 on the bottom. But I can't divide 16 by 3 or 9, so I'm just going to let it go. For number 4, we have 92, 92, 92, 92, 92. So we put 92 in our numerator and 99 in the denominator, and it cannot be simplified. The last problem is 214 repeating, so it goes over 999 because there's 3 digits, and it again cannot be simplified. So on the bottom of your page, there's also a space for you to write a math hack. And here, for those of you that have Mrs. Inquist, you've already heard this, but we want you to go ahead and write it in again, just so you know. This is called the 9-11 rule, and it is for repeating decimals. If you have a 9 in your denominator, then the number that's in the numerator is the number that repeats, because technically you're multiplying it by 11. So 5 times 11 would give me 55, or just the 5 repeats. So this is what it would look like. If I have 1 in my numerator, 1 times 11 is 11, 0.11111. 2 times 11, if 2 was my numerator, would give me 2 repeating. 3 times 11 gives me 3 repeating, and so on. It would continue. However, if 11 is in the denominator, then you're going to multiply the number in the numerator by 9 to find the repeating decimal. So here's an example, 5 over 11. You multiply the 5 times 9, and you get 45, 45, 45, 45, and that would be your repeating decimal. You could just write it as 45 repeating, and that would be fine. Here's some more examples that you can write down if you want to, but you don't have to. Oh, and just so you know, you'll always have 2 repeating decimals with 11, and those 2 are always going to add up to 9. So 4 plus 5 gives you 9, and so on. I'll show you some more examples. If I have 1 over 11, this is the only one that gets a little tricky. 1 times 9 is just 9, but it's not 0.999. You have to make it 2 digits that add up to 9, so it's 0, 9. 090909, and you can remember that because 1/11 is very, very small, so it's less than 1/10, if that makes any sense. And then 2/11, you take 2, multiply it by 9, and you get 18, 18, 18, and the 1 and the 8 would add up to 9. And then 3/11, you multiply 3 times 9, and you get 27, 27, 27, 27, and the 2 and the 7 add up to a 9. So hopefully you see that pattern, because of course math is all about patterns. And now it is time to show what you know, log into the decimals to fractions homework quiz, and show us what you have learned through today's lesson.